Hello, I'm Liam, a gardener, and welcome to my video on winter colour in gardens. On a cold and wet day like today, I think it's a great example of why planting for winter interest is needed. I think gardens in winter can be beautiful, and this video contains planting ideas for winter colour. Over the years, I've increasingly come to appreciate the joy of visiting gardens in winter, with many having dedicated planting areas for winter enjoyment. And in my work, many gardens contain at least a few plants for winter interest, whether plants are positioned next to entrances or visible from windows. Planting for winter interest, I think, can help lift all our spirits through the cold weather months. The video will cover the relatively few options for flowering plants, especially in the early winter months of late November and December. It will also look at options for late winter flowering bulbs. With warmer temperatures, I now plant spring bulbs with the intention of them providing late winter colour. But garden colour can also be provided by colourful fruit, in particular berries, and these plants provide a display of colour that can last for several months through winter. What's more, many of these are at their best just after leaf fall in autumn, when little else is around. And then there are my favourite plants for winter colour, those shrubs and trees that have brightly coloured woody stems. These are often deciduous shrubs and trees, and when the leaves have fallen, it provides the opportunity to see clearly the brightly coloured stems, often of the young wood. And it's not only colour that winter does well. Arguably, winter is the best time of year for a gardener growing plants for scent. Their flowers may not be as large as other seasons, but there are a number of plants that produce so much perfume that their scent can travel as clouds many metres across a garden. In addition, my favourite sight of all in winter is when a hard frost decorates in gloriously icy crystals the old flower heads and stems of plants. And some of these dead and dry stems I think are attractive on their own merits anyway. And finally, there are evergreen plants to consider. With the absence of competition from herbaceous perennials, these plants stand out more in winter. They also add architectural interest to a garden and prevent it looking empty, as well as providing important habitat for wildlife. So let's get started. Oh, and one more thing, if you like the plants covered in this video, they are all contained in my app. It's called myPlants.app, and it's available on the Apple and Android app stores. There's a link below in the description and at the end of the video. Getting the app really helps to support the channel, so I can continue to make more videos like this one. Starting with flowering plants, some are herbaceous, meaning non-woody plants, grown for their flowers, whilst many are shrubs that flower in the winter months. Viola, or winter pansies, are one of the most well-known winter flowering plants. In my view, they look their best in late autumn, before freezing weather arrives, and perk up again with warmer temperatures in late winter, and carry on well into spring. Over winter itself, in my view, they can be a little disappointing, unless positioned in a well-protected spot like a sheltered courtyard. Cyclamen coum is the winter flowering cyclamen, whereas Cyclamen hederifolium is autumn flowering. Cyclamen coum produce low-growing, delicate-looking flowers, good for naturalising under trees or shady areas. There are two viburnums I see often in winter gardens. Viburnum ex bodnatense is relatively tall-growing and can produce clusters of small pink and white flowers through winter. Viburnum tinus has a more bushy growth habit, making it good for hedging. In midwinter, clusters of small white flowers cover the plant. Jasminum nudiflorum is a climbing plant that produces small yellow flowers and needs to be tied into supports. It's a vigorous grower that needs cutting back after flowering to keep it looking at its best. Hamamelis are my favourite winter flowering plants. There are many cultivars to choose from, with a range of colours from pale yellow to bright orange and bold reds, and some also have strong scent. I find the flowers really attract the eye, with their unusual spring-like appearance on leaf-free branches. Erica or heathers are typically low-growing plants that produce masses of white or pink flowers. There are varieties that flower in early winter, and more commonly late winter into early spring. Hellebores come in many varieties and cultivars, with new cultivars often having a more upright and taller flowering habit. I really like them for their late winter colour, but some hellebores have quite a drooping habit and downward facing flowers that look beautiful close up, but require a gardener to kneel down and bend over to see them. And the last two ideas for winter flowering plants are bulbs that seem to flower earlier every year. When grown in ideal conditions, snowdrops can carpet an area. I see them as the first sign that the New Year flower season has arrived, often by late January. Iris reticulata come a little later. Like snowdrops, they are not the tallest flowering bulbs, but they produce a splash of colour at the end of winter. They are also great for adding to containers. The next collection of plants provide early winter colour through their fruit. Their length and size of display can vary not only based on pollination, but also how quickly birds and other wildlife eat them. Pyracantha berries come in different colours, including yellow, orange, and the more common red, and in a good season produce enough berries to create a wall of colour. For best colour, I like to lightly prune the plants just as the berries ripen, removing green stem tips and leaves that hide the fruit. Cotoneasters are less prickly than Pyracanthas, and there are tree and small shrub varieties. Like Pyracanthas, they can be covered in berries from the autumn and last well into winter. Calocarpa provides a colour contrast with its bright purple berries. And finally in this section is Malus sylvestris, or crabapple. How long the display lasts into winter often depends on wildlife, with many birds liking to eat them. This section is all about colourful woody stems. Of all ways of seeing colour in winter, perhaps with the exception of hamamelis flowers, I think colourful woody stems are my favourite way of seeing winter colour, especially when there is space to place a number of plants next to each other for greater impact. Acers are well known for the red, yellow or green leaves, and especially for the colourful autumn display before leaf fall. But a few varieties also have colourful stems. A great example is Acer negundo, winter lightning. Similarly, salix or willow can have colourful stems like the acers. Coppicing or pollarding is used to promote new growth, as the new growth contains the best colour. Salix alba is a good example of this. But my favourite winter stems of all are provided by cornus or dogwood, with colours including vibrant green, yellow, orange and red. Cornus plants, especially when grown en masse with several plants grown side by side, can produce a wonderful display of colour. For contrast, all these colourful stems can be interplanted with white stems, either of silver birch or Betula pendula, or with white-stemmed brambles like Rubus tibetanus. The next few collections of plants provide winter interest through other means than colour, and I think the best example of this is scent, with some winter plants producing drifts of scent that can travel many metres away from the plants themselves. Daphne plants are a good example of this. Both Daphne Balua and Daphne Spring Beauty are highly scented plants and also produce attractive pink and white flowers. Esworthia chrysanthera produces masses of highly scented flowers. These flowers are produced in midwinter and are notable as they are produced when the plant is out of leaf. I've included two varieties of Lonicera or honeysuckle which produce sweetly scented white flowers. Lonicera fragrantissima grows as an upright shrub, while Lonicera winter beauty is more rounded. Chimonanthus praecox or wintersweet is another highly scented plant that flowers in midwinter when not in leaf. The plant likes a sunny position to perform well. And the last featured plant in this section is Sarcococca hookeriana. It's a shade-loving plant for about 1 metre height that needs support, and it's highly scented and ideal for positioning next to entrances or windows. The next idea for winter interest applies to any plants that leave dead flower heads or stems above ground over winter. Two good examples of these are Hylotelethrium and hydrangeas. I think the bronze colour of their old flower heads add winter interest on their own with their sculptural shape. However, one of my favourite sights in winter is when a hard frost covers plant materials with ice crystals. It's worth braving the sub-zero temperatures in early morning to see this, and the plant material is a great habitat for wildlife too. And I don't think a video about winter interest in gardens is complete without thinking about evergreen plants. I picked out a few examples that I really like, that add architectural interest in height or form, or just help a garden look easy on the eye through the winter months. Bay trees are common in the gardens I work in. It's a matter of taste, but I like it when the canopy is rounded, whether for a small or large tree. Cordyline australis are sufficiently hardy to survive without additional care where I live in the south of England. The combination of interesting bare trunks and relatively small rounded heads provide interest while allowing plenty of light and space for other plants to thrive around them. Pinus contorta Chief Joseph is another tree that offers an unusual shape with its branches and a striking yellow or golden colour through the winter months. Grasses can be great for winter interest too. I mentioned earlier that leaving vertical stems of dead vegetation can be attractive, but there are other grasses that remain evergreen through winter. One example is Acarus gramineus that has attractive variegated leaves. It is naturally clump forming and not too ambitious. Another is Ophiopogon planiscarpus, a low-growing black grass that can provide a nice backdrop to brightly coloured stems. And lastly, there are shrubs that can play a similar role to the architectural trees I mentioned earlier, but at a lower height. Euphorbia chariceus is one example with its interesting leaves and upright stems, followed by green flower heads in spring. Euonymus are larger plants, but make good border fillers, and they are relatively easy to control through pruning. Euonymus japonicus bravo has brightly coloured variegated leaves, and can even be used as a low hedge. And larger again is Fatsia japonica, which is particularly good as a plant to add interest to a shady area. It has large pinnate leaves all year round, and in autumn produces lovely clusters of small white flowers. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video and it contained some ideas to try at home. Please let me know by hitting the like button or leaving a comment. To find more information on the plants mentioned in the video and other plants too, see myPlants.app. The plants are organised into sections like winter colour, plants good for shade, or tolerant of clay soil and things like that, as I found this the most helpful way of finding plants for my work as a gardener.